part of Richard Blackford's cello concerto, The Recovery of Paradise, played by Alisa Weilerstein with the Czech Philharmonic, conducted by Tomáš Netopil, a new release from Pentatone. I'm James Jolly and welcome to this Gramophone Podcast. Alisa Weilerstein premiered 3 new cello concertos last season, as well as the Richard Blackford. There was Dzonot by Gabriela Ortiz, which she recorded for Platoon with the Los Angeles Philharmonic and Gustavo Dudamel, and she also performed a new work by Thomas Larcher, Returning into Darkness with the New York Philharmonic. I caught up with her to talk about the new recordings and also hear about her Fragments project, which she's bringing to London as part of a South Bank Centre residency later this year. I was looking at your schedule for 25-26, and I'm always amazed at how much new music you champion. And there's very little pre-20th century. I mean,
this year, yeah.
No, actually, I was going to say the Elgar, but of course the Elgar is
actually 20th century.
20th century.
And I mean, of course, there's Dvorak as well, but it's that's also very late 19th century. So it's.
So we're going to talk about 2 recordings of new cello concertos, the Richard Blackford, The Recovery of Paradise, and Gabriela Ortiz's Dzonot. Both, interestingly, they are related in a way because they're both to do with what we as human beings are doing to our planet.
Correct. And at the same time, I mean, of course, there's very much that underlying inspiration and narrative to both of them. And yet you could still go and listen to those concertos without knowing any of that and still get everything out of these pieces because, I mean, they're just great. They're both great composers and they're great communicators. And so they stand on their own.
Let's talk about the Gabriela Ortiz one as that came out first. I mean, when you get a work like this, I mean, we should say Dzonot is the Mexican version of cenote, which are those kind of sinkhole caves that form underneath the surface and they're often filled with water and they almost create their own sort of microclimate. They're breathtakingly beautiful. And this concerto is in 4 movements and looks at various elements around the cenote. I mean, as a performer, how important is it for you to know, as it were, the kind of story? Or do you treat it as abstract music?
You have to go for, I mean, the whole thing, the whole macro level. And then you go in deep. So, I mean, you know, she also was very clear with me. I mean, every composer is different, right? So, I mean, she wrote to me, okay, this is what this is about. And then she also sent me the score at the same time. And then, of course, so like, okay, this was useful to know. But then, of course, you have to just go about learning the music and learning the score, learning the structure. Of course, the notes as well, which are, in her case, I mean, that concerto is extremely intricate. It's technically very, very demanding. And the shaping is, I needed to understand her language, her musical language, before I even really went deep into the story. I've said again and again, because I really believe this, I mean, sometimes as a listener, I prefer not to know the context. I just want to hear the composers speak through their music. And so when I'm learning a new piece, of course, I mean, I take all of the information that I can get, but at the same time, the most important information is what I understand from the notes, from the score and the orchestration.
If one just takes the first movement of this piece, Luz Vertical, Vertical Light, which describes that extraordinary visual phenomenon where the light comes down through the hole and it forms this kind of pillar.
Exactly, this pillar of light. You have this ethereal character, but it's written it is absolutely written in the scores that these harmonics, which are, I mean, they're very, very clear what they're expressing, and the choice of instruments that she has, and these really, really bright musical colors, it's obvious. And then, of course, then you have the specific image of this incredible phenomenon of the vertical light. But the description of it is so vivid in her writing. I mean, this is the biggest compliment I could give any composer. It is so exact what she's asking for, and also, and it's not only in the notes; it's also in the dynamics that she writes. I mean, like what color she wants to highlight and what kind of expression she wants. It's very, very clear, So as I'm learning the concerto and then, doing my best to communicate it, that's what my focus is.
Did you get the sense when you saw the music that actually this was very much written for you? I mean, were there things in the score you thought, gosh, she's listened to me? And
she definitely pushes an instrumentalist to the limit. And I told her, but we had a conversation when this came about, and she kind of was like, well, what do you look for? I was like, look, do whatever you want. I said, I don't like to limit myself. I like challenges. Just go for it. And she certainly did. So I guess in that sense, maybe.
No, because listening to it, it is phenomenally difficult.
Yeah.
The challenges. It's jaw dropping.
Yeah.
Some of the effects.
Yeah.
Is it idiomatically written for the cello? Not only is it very hard, obviously, but it seems to be playable.
Oh yeah.
Okay. At the very limits of technique.
Yes, and no, she is a very skilled composer. She's a very learned composer. She knows what is possible on the instrument. And I only asked her for one technical change, which I didn't necessarily need to make, but there was a place where she had octaves where I asked her why she wanted the octaves there. It's like, look, it's not a question of a technical thing, but if you want more sound, it will actually sound louder if I don't play the octaves. And she said, yes, I want more sound. So I said, then I would suggest, if I may, let's take the octaves out here. And then, of course, she has octaves, in a million other places. But then she said, oh, yeah, take them out, just play the upper line. And it's one little passage that lasts about literally 2 seconds. It's two groups of triplets where she had these octaves, but it would make it sound sort of heavy rather than big and generous. And she changed it immediately. But other than that, that was the only kind of technical change that I asked for.
I watched that really fascinating little video that the Los Angeles Film made of you two talking on the roof of in Spanish, on the roof of the on Disney Hall, and then little clips of the rehearsals. And I got the feeling that when she came to talk to you and Dudamel, it was just sort of like fine tuning or small. Actually, I think this would be, or that note should be a little bit longer.
It was 90% done already before the first rehearsal. I think she made a couple instrumentation changes, maybe a couple, balance things, because the orchestration is so huge. And of course, my sound is not small, but I'm still a cellist, so I can't produce the amount of sound that a piano can. But it was small details at that point.
It just has the most amazing colours, that piece. I can imagine you've done it now in LA, you've done it in New York, you're going to do it again in San Diego in the not too distant future.
Right, and then in London with Philharmonia. Yeah, South Bank Centre, I think, only announces 3 months ahead of time, but I'm in residence at the South Bank Centre this year, and so I'm doing 4 of my Fragments programs. So 2 in the fall and 2 in the spring, and Dzonot with Marin Alsop and Philharmonia in March, and then I'm also doing a chamber music program with standard repertoire, Beethoven Archduke and Ravel Trio with Inon Baranton and Stefan Jakif in end of November.
Am I right in thinking that one of the things that compels you to commission a lot of particularly new cello concertos, would I be right in thinking that Rostropovich was a kind of inspiration for this? Because if one thinks of the cello repertoire, huge chunks of the cello repertoire which are now absolutely standard are due to him.
Yes, 100%. I think he is, and not only mine. There are many of my colleagues actually are really, really passionate about expanding the repertoire and have great relationships with composers, which is fantastic. But yes, Rostropovich is kind of our North Star in that sense. 200 works or more. I don't know how many he premiered in his lifetime, and he's responsible largely for the Shostakovich Concerti, for Prokofiev, for Penderecki, Lutosławski, all of these 20th century classics. And and I played Shostakovich one for him when I was around 22 years old. But yes, we feel like we have to carry that torch now to make sure that our 21st century repertoire is at the forefront.
Looking at your schedule for next year, there are works that I suspect are now edging their way into the kind of, I wouldn't say core repertoire, but something like the Ung Suk Chin.
Oh, yeah.
Cello concerto. I mean, that is a work one encountering more and more.
Yes, and I mean, of course, Alban Gerhardt, that's the colleague I think of as maybe one of the greatest champions of new repertoire, and who's made incredible relationships with composers. So, of course, he was the muse for that concerto, and I played it for the first time 2 years ago in Berlin. And we just brought it to San Diego, which I think was maybe only the second U.S. orchestra to do it. And then I'm doing it in Cleveland this coming season as well. And that's a premiere for them as well. And he's played it a million times, of course, but I'm trying to champion it as much as I can because I just think that that's such a work of genius. And it really deserves to be in the major repertoire.
I mean, let's talk about the Richard Blackford concerto. I mean, how did that come about? Was that through a sort of relationship you had with the Czech Phil?
Yes. I mean, we go back a long way. 2011 was my first engagement with the Czech Phil, and, we recorded the Dvorak concerto together. And obviously, we've gone through a lot of cello repertoire. And so then this was a relationship that they had with Richard Blackford, and they asked me to do this, in which I happily obliged as well. And I heard he wrote a wonderful violin concerto for them called Niobe, which I just thought was a really beautiful orchestration and a really beautiful language, very, very sincere. And so, I really wanted to be part of that. And he's a wonderful human being and wrote a really beautiful concerto.
I get the feeling that it wasn't as technically demanding as the Ortiz, and it used a lot of cello techniques that one is kind of familiar with. But actually, it still manages to sound very original, very new as a piece. And as we said at the beginning, underlying again this sort of concern with the planet. It's about, the
wildfires and
fires in your kind of neck of the woods down there in California.
Yeah.
And then in the fourth, funny enough, these are both full movement works. In the fourth movement, it's the rebuilding, the recovery of paradise, this town that was completely destroyed and has sort of come back to life. So it's a kind of almost, I guess, the human element is more central in that last movement.
It's very, very touching. I'm getting chills thinking about it, actually. It's a story of resilience and the belief that we can overcome I think, it's not only environmental, but I also sense it's quite a political undertone as well. That we're living in an extremely volatile time, and that we've been here before, and we can recover. We can find our values again, and that's kind of the sense that I get from it.
And you performed it presumably in Prague when you recorded it. How did it go down with the Czech audience? Very, very well.
I wasn't sure how it would. You're never sure with any new piece that the audience is hearing for the first time. But no, they responded very warmly to it, and it's also it's a very emotional piece. As I was saying, I mean it's very, very touching. It hits right to the core, and so people really were touched by it.
I feel we have to sort of complete the trio of talking about the three concertos. These
Thomas
are the two
Larcher,
that are recorded.
Yeah.
But the Tomáš Netopil is another piece. I mean, taking on three brand new concertos in one season. I mean,
and not only that, my entire Fragments project, which has 27 new pieces. So that was last season was wild.
When you have a new work, I mean, these are both substantial pieces. I mean, they're not, 5 minutes. These are, big. Do you have a kind of sort of modus operandi, how I'm going to do this? I need so many weeks to get on top of it. I mean, what's your process with a new work?
I mean, it depends on the new work. For the first time in a very long time, last season, I actually wrote down a kind of progressive practice schedule. Because, of course, I didn't receive the full score of Thomas's piece until 2 months before the actual premiere. So I mean, I couldn't. It's not as if I could practice it in advance when I had a little time and the end of December or something. I also needed that time off, like kind of away from the cello. So I knew exactly when the hours would have to appear for me to really learn the piece. And so I just scheduled it. I had to stay organized, and I'm a mother of 2 small children, so I mean, I know about doing that sort of thing. Just being very practical about it.
And you divide your time now between San Diego and Montreal,
Yes,
where
yes.
your husband is music director of both orchestras.
But our girls are in school in Montreal. So, I mean, Montreal is, in a sense, base one, and then San Diego is base two. So,
I mean, they are really contrasted places.
very much.
Everything
very much,
about them
yes.
is so completely different.
Yes. Yeah. No, absolutely. But what they have in common, of course, is that they're both border towns in very different ways, of course. But it's kind of interesting that they both have this very sort of distinctive feature about them. You know, Montreal's only 50 kilometers, I think, away from the border of the U.S., and San Diego is even closer, of course. It's literally on the border, yeah. So, yeah.
And how does that manifest itself, do you think, in the way these cities are? They're much more culturally aware because they're so close to a different country. And I mean, particularly with San Diego.
San Diego, I mean,
very different.
There's so much Latin and Spanish influence here, of course. And in Montreal, of course, it's a completely bilingual city. Even though, of course, French is preferred, generally speaking, and one uses a lot of French there. But there's a kind of openness, I think, in both places, which is interesting.
Tell me a little bit about this South Bank residency, since we have a large number of British listeners to this podcast. Yes. I mean, just give us a little bit more of a flavour of what the Fragments project is about.
So, in a nutshell, Fragments is 6 programs comprised of all 6 Bach suites interlaced with 27 commissions by a group of composers that is highly diverse in every way. So, of course, racially and ethnically diverse, but also in terms of age and stage of career. So the youngest commissioned composer at the time was 26. The oldest is 84. Was 84, and it is a completely gender balanced group as well. And it's a fully immersive production with set design and responsive lighting. So that's in a nutshell what it is. Each program is 1 hour long, so these pieces are divided between them, but they are continuous arcs. So it's not as if I play one Bach suite and then I play a bunch of new pieces, or the other way around. What I asked each composer to do was to write pieces that were up to 10 minutes long in 2 or 3 movements that could stand alone. And I was upfront saying, look, my intention is to reorder the movements and interlace them with music of your colleagues and or the music of Bach. And I give Bach the same treatment. Luckily, I spoke to 28 composers and 27 of them went for it. Yeah, so that was that. What I do with these hour-long programs is that they are played without pause. So I basically played Tetris, if you like, or I played God with the pieces and created 60-minute arcs that make sense musically. There's no other reason for putting the pieces together other than what works cohesively musically. And working with Elkanah Politzer, the wonderful opera director, and Seth Reeser, they respond visually to the music. So there are a couple programs where each composer has their own kind of lighting language, and there are others where the lighting just follows the arc, the general arc of the music. Each program is its own very distinct world. So there are now titles to the program. So, for example, Fragment 1 is it's called Wonder, and the pieces there in general that are also interlaced with the first Bach suite, they have a kind of earnestness about them and an innocence. And so Elkanah's idea was that this set would always travel with me, that this fragmented room would always travel with me, no matter what hall I'm in, whether I'm in Disney Hall or South Bank Center, Purcell Room or whatever, but that this would be my distinctive set. In Fragment 1, the set is placed around me. It looks a little bit like Stonehenge. It's very protective. There are bespoke costumes for each of these as well. And I'm dressed in, let's say, a muted color gown. It's quite modest. It's very pretty, but it is that world where it's kind of like it's a rosebud, I'd say. I mean, there's plenty of variety within it, of course. There's plenty of drama, but that's the kind of general character. The second one is called Tumult. Another 5 pieces interlaced with second Bach suite, and it's this completely different character. It's quite wild, it's very raw, angsty, and I'm in a punk outfit. You can think kind of Cyndi Lauper or Courtney Love circa 1991, and the set is placed around me in kind of deconstructed way. It looks a bit knocked down from the formality of number 1. Number 3 is called Emergence. The character of the program is very outward facing, very, very strong, confident. And this time the set is placed behind me and it looks like a concrete wall. The boxes are piled on top of each other. And these boxes, they actually light individually. The lighting comes from the boxes as well as the larger stage. So it's very, very dramatic. The 4th is called Labyrinth, and the set is placed so that it looks like I'm kind of sitting on a pyre. And it's much more interior, very philosophical, and but it's the same structure with the interlacing of the music. The 5th is called Lament, and this time there's a cloth that is placed over the set, and you can see the lighting shining through the cloth. It's much more muted, and the nature of the music is quite tragic. And you feel like you're kind of looking into a very private moment. And the 6th is its opposite. It's called Radiance. And so the set is placed in a way that kind of nods to number 1. It's kind of bringing it back. But the set looks like wings. It's kind of the feeling that they are there, but I don't need them. They're there to now support me. I'm no longer burdened by these boxes. And I'm dressed in this very resplendent orange gown. And all of the visual elements are in response to the programs. I mean, I created the programs first, and then the visuals came much later. But the arc of the 6th program is kind of coming out of the darkness and then into absolutely resplendent, benevolent light. And that is, in a nutshell, what Fragments is at the moment.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
We're looking very much forward to that as part of your residency. Yeah.
Thank you. I mean, the last thing I'll say is that what's made it sort of difficult for people to get their heads around is that it doesn't fall easily into a category. It's not a recital. It's not theater. It's its own thing. You can't really compare it to many other things. And of course, there are so many wonderful Bach and new music projects, but this is its own thing. So that's why it's been, in a way, I mean, it's been so much fun to do. It's hard to describe in a nutshell, let's say. Yeah.
Part of Dzonot by Gabriela Ortiz, it was played by our guest Alisa Weilerstein with the Los Angeles Philharmonic, conducted by Gustavo Dudamel. It's a Platoon release, and the Richard Blackford concerto comes from Pentatone. Alisa Weilerstein's residency at London's South Bank Centre finds her performing 2 of her Fragments programmes on September the 27th, piano trios on November the 30th, and she joins the Philharmonia in Marin Alsop for Gabriela Ortiz's Dzonot on March the 12th next year. Gramophone podcasts are free, so if you enjoy them, then a really great way to support our work is to take out a subscription to Gramophone magazine. Over 13 issues a year, we bring you hundreds of reviews by our expert critics, as well as in-depth articles about the latest classical music releases and the most exciting musicians of the day. And if you head over to gramophone.co.uk/subscribe and enter the code podcast20 in the checkout, you can even get a 20% discount off any subscription package. We really value your support, and consider leaving a review or rating wherever you listen to your podcasts. And do look out for another Gramophone podcast very soon.